All right, so picture this. It's a Saturday night. You're out with friends at like a beach club in Italy. Music's pumping. Everyone's having a good time, just letting loose. And then tragedy strikes.
Yeah, it's a story that unfortunately we hear far too often. But this one, the shooting at Bahia Beach and the subsequent arrest of 21-year-old Michele Lavopa, this one has some twists and turns that really make you think.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're diving into today. We're going through this Italian news article, breaking down the details, the confession. But it's going to get kind of wild, right? Because as we go deeper, you see this isn't just a random act of violence. There's a whole lot more going on beneath the surface.
Exactly. What we really need to unpack here, for anyone who might not be familiar, is this whole world of Italian organized crime, specifically these groups they call clans.
Clans, right. Not just like your average street gangs either. We're talking about something much bigger, much more ingrained.
You got it. These clans, they have a long and complicated history, deeply rooted in the fabric of certain regions of Italy. It's about power, it's about territory, and it's about maintaining control by any means necessary. And unfortunately, sometimes that means violence.
And in this case, that violence claims the life of 19-year-old Antonia Lopez. The article really emphasizes that she was an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, a tragic case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And what makes it even more disturbing is that, according to the article, she wasn't even the intended target.
Wait, really? So if she wasn't the target, who was?
The article points to a 20-year-old named Eugeni Palermiti. Apparently, he's got ties to one of these clans, the Giappigia clan, and he was injured in the shooting.
The plot thickens. Okay, so we've got a nightclub, a shooting, potential clan warfare brewing. And then there's this Lavopa guy. He gets arrested. And get this, the article actually quotes his confession. He straight up says, "Yes, it was me. Then I threw the gun into the sea." I mean, come on, that's like something you'd see in a movie.
It's a bold statement, that's for sure. But the wheels in my head start turning when I hear that. Why confess so quickly? Is he trying to protect someone else? And then there's the detail about the gun. Is that even true? Or is he leading investigators on a wild goose chase?
Speaking of wild goose chases, later on in the article, Lavopa changes his story about the gun. First, it's sleeping with the fishes, gone forever. But then he says he stashed it somewhere in the countryside. So which is it, dude? Make up your mind.
Right. It's a huge inconsistency. Yeah. And these little details, these inconsistencies, they often end up being far more important than you'd think.
Especially when you're talking about something as high stakes as potential clan violence, right?
Exactly. And the article mentions something else that I think is worth exploring: surveillance footage from the club. Apparently, it caught the argument that led up to the shooting, even names a couple more individuals.
Oh, yeah. Like who? Give me names.
One is a Giuseppe F. Not much info on him, but the other name that popped up was Tupac.
Tupac? Seriously? As in the rapper?
Well, I highly doubt it's the same Tupac. But nicknames like that, especially in these circles, they often mean something. It could be a way to intimidate, to build a reputation, maybe even hint at a connection to a larger criminal network.
It's like one of those details that seems small at first, but it could end up blowing the whole case wide open, right?
Exactly. So we've got a confession that might not be so straightforward, a missing gun, potential clan warfare, and a mysterious Tupac. Where do we even begin to untangle all of this?
Well, to really wrap your head around a case like this, it helps to think like the folks who would be investigating it, right? And in Italy, when we're talking about organized crime, especially groups with deep roots like the Giappigia clan, they've got specialists for that.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Didn't we come across something about that in the article? They have like a whole separate division just for this kind of stuff. Spot on. They call it the Direzione Investigativa Antimafia, or DIA for short. And trust me, these guys, they live and breathe organized crime investigations. They're not just looking at the shooting itself. They're digging into the clan's finances, their political connections, the whole shebang.
So while the local cops are at Bahia Beach, dusting for prints and all that, the DIA is building a case that goes way beyond one night at a club.
Yeah.
They're thinking big picture.
Exactly. They're connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture because, think about it, this shooting, the potential for retaliation, it could throw the whole region into chaos. The DIA's job is to prevent that from happening.
And speaking of connecting the dots, there was that whole thing in the article about Lavopa saying he only had the gun for, and I quote, self-defense. Like, come on, does that even fly in this situation?
It's a common defense, sure. But come on. You really have to wonder, was there actually a credible threat to Lavopa that night? Or is this just a convenient story? A way to try and sway the courts,
And wouldn't knowing more about this Japigia clan, like their rivals, their history, wouldn't that help answer that question? Was Lavopa truly living under some kind of threat? Or was that self-defense story just a load of baloney?
See, now you're starting to think like an investigator. Because that's a key part of this whole thing. You got to understand the dynamics between these clans. Let's just say, for argument's sake, the intended target, this Pellermiti guy, maybe he's involved in some kind of dispute with another clan. Was Lavopa acting on his own? Or was he acting on behalf of the Japigia clan? Maybe trying to send a message or something. These are the kinds of questions investigators are going to be trying to piece together.
Man, it's like all of a sudden we're not just talking about a shooting anymore, right? It's like this whole power struggle, maybe even a turf war, just bubbling under the surface.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that missing gun. If investigators find it, and it can be traced back to the Japigi clan, well, that just throws a whole other wrench into the gears.
It's like that gun, it's not just a piece of evidence, it's like almost a ticking time bomb. Finding it could solve this case, but maybe prevent some future violence, too.
It's like a key,
Yeah.
a key to unlocking this whole network, understanding how they operate, who they reach, and how likely they are to resort to violence again.
All right, so let's recap. We've got a confession that might not be as straightforward as it seems, a missing gun that could blow the whole case wide open, and all these clan rivalries, more tangled than a plate of spaghetti, am I right? So where do we even go from here? How do investigators even start to untangle this mess? So we're back, and I gotta say, this whole Bahia Beach thing, it's like every time we think we've got a handle on it, bam, another layer pops up. Really makes you think twice about those random acts of violence you hear about, huh?
It's like that saying, right? The tip of the iceberg. What we see on the surface is often just a small fraction of what's really going on.
And in this case, what's going on is a whole lot bigger than just one shooting. We're talking about these deeply rooted, powerful clans. How do you even begin to police that kind of world?
Well, that's where a specialized unit like the DIA really comes into play. They're not just reacting to individual crimes. They're trying to understand the whole ecosystem. The power dynamics, the rivalries, the motivations. They need to see the board from all angles.
So it's like, while the immediate aftermath of the shooting at Bahia Beach is important, the confession, the missing gun, all that, the DIA, they're playing the long game, right? They're thinking about what happens next, the ripple effects.
Precisely. Think of it like a chess match. Every move has consequences, right? The DIA, they're trying to anticipate the next move, not just for the Japigia clan, but for any of their rivals, too. They're looking at past incidents, monitoring known associates, gathering intelligence. It's all about prevention.
Man, it's kind of wild when you really think about it. This whole other world existing right under our noses, where violence can erupt at any moment, often for reasons most people wouldn't even understand.
And that's why understanding these groups, their codes of conduct, their motivations, it's crucial. Knowledge in this case, it really can be the best defense against getting caught in the crossfire.
Which sadly brings us back to Antonia, the young woman who lost her life that night. It's a harsh reminder that these power struggles, these clan wars, they have very real, very human consequences.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the intrigue, the drama of organized crime, especially from a distance. But we can't ever forget that at the heart of it all, there's violence, there's intimidation, and innocent lives are often caught in the middle.
Definitely something to keep in mind whenever we dive into these complex and, sometimes fascinating stories. We got to broach them with respect,
Yeah.
Recognizing the human cost.
Exactly. And remember that even a single incident, like this shooting at Bahia Beach, it can unravel a much larger story, shedding light on this hidden world and the constant struggle for justice and safety.
And for anyone listening out there, imagine you're the one handed this case file, right? What would you do? Where would you even begin? Sometimes just asking the right questions is the first step towards understanding a world far more complex than we ever imagine.